There are growing concerns about mold following all the rain that we've had.
Health reporter Stephanie Stahl is here with a warning from doctors.
That's right, lots of mold around. You guys have to be careful. You know, mold thrives in damp environments, and research shows chronic exposure to mold can cause a variety of health issues. And the problem with mold is you don't always know it's there.
How in the world is this even possible?
Rachel Dorian says she was shocked to learn she had mold toxicity.
I grew up in a mold home, not knowing at the time, neither did my parents. My body just started to act weird. I didn't know what was going on.
With all the rain and flooding in the Philadelphia region, doctors say debris and mold is a concern.
The big key is that flooded water, as you know, is unsafe.
Health officials say mold can be a lingering problem after homes and other locations are flooded if they're not dried properly.
The enemy of all this is mold, and mold loves moisture.
Doctors say mold usually causes allergic reactions like respiratory symptoms in most people, but it can also be more serious.
I didn't understand why I was having neurological symptoms. I was having dizziness. I was having rashes. My eyes were burning.
Rachel says a urine test finally showed mold was causing her problems. That happened at Meeting Point Health in Philadelphia, where she now works, and they specialize in treating mold toxicity.
We see a myriad of patients with all of these different symptoms. We don't really know that it's a problem until it's a problem.
Rachel says she's okay as long as she's not in moldy environments, but that can be tricky to avoid. It can be lurking and you don't even know it's there.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. You don't have to walk in and it's musty.
Doctors say you can't always see or smell mold. That's why people are urged to be cautious after flooding or get environmental testing.
After all the rain that we've had in our area, I mean, you could start seeing things manifest in the next month or two if basements haven't been dried out properly.
Now, experts say it is important to prevent mold to clean and dry out flooded spaces quickly, and a dehumidifier can also help reduce the risk of mold. We have a lot more information for you on mold and how to fight it, protect yourself. CBSPhiladelphia.com. Really important
So
to get
important.
those places
Yes,
dried out.
Thanks, I appreciate you.
Damaged many homes in one way or another after all the rain we just had.
And as Channel 3 New London Bureau Chief Luke Hydash explains, the cleanup continues well beyond when the water dries up.
Giordano Restoration, this is Gary. How can I help you?
Gary Giordano is in high demand right now.
I had about 20 calls that I fielded. I was able to take on only 2 of the jobs because our workload was already crushed from the previous rainstorm we had last week. It's quite wet right now.
Monday, he was at Ashley Covey's Gales Ferry home. He was already working here on a separate job when a tree limb fell through the ceiling Sunday night.
Something else, really. If there was a time for this to happen, maybe this is the best time for it. Nobody was home. We're all safe.
This is the area where that branch came through the house, a closet in one of the bedrooms. Now the concern is that mold could be forming in the floor beneath there.
It's always a battle trying to stay ahead of it.
Giordano uses tools like this one, a moisture meter, to find the damage the eye can't.
Within 24 hours, we try to get some sort of mitigation underway. Older homes built before a certain year, we've got to test materials before we can rip them out.
Mold setting in can cause breathing and health problems. It can start forming 24 to 36 hours after the damage. Although the hole is fixed and the water cleaned up at Covey's home, there's a long road ahead to eliminate any mold.
That process could take days, it could take weeks, depending on what we find.
When water gets into your house, the Better Business Bureau says you should take a lot of pictures to document the damage. Call your insurance company right away and hire a reputable contractor. Let them make the repairs.
The railing all crushed, the stairwell.
Back at Covey's house, it will be some time before Ashley, her husband, and little boy will be living here.
The goal that I was hoping is home by Christmas.
In Gales Ferry, Luke Hydash, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
More coverage of Hurricane Irene, which has not only caused damage in the Susquehanna Valley, but for some it can cause health issues. In the aftermath of Irene, mold is a possibility for many homes because that's a serious threat to your health. News 8 asked an expert what you can do today to keep mold away. With more on that, here's Dauphin County reporter Portia Johnson.
I see many pieces of debris.
Curiosity always has May Dooley looking for answers, and right now she is looking for mold.
So we have a very low level of mold here.
Dooley is a scientist by trade, and she says it's common to find green mold in your basement after a storm, especially if your basement is finished.
And hurricane comes along and the water comes in and you have some wetness at the bottom of the drywall or the paneling. Then you have to cut off that, open it up, dry it out, and reconstruct. This is one reason why it's such an advantage to have an unfinished basement.
But an unfinished basement doesn't mean you're mold-free.
You follow the path of the water.
Dooley says the big sign that your basement could have mold growing is discolored spots on the wall or floor.
Many people think that concrete wall is waterproof, and it's not. It's porous. It lets moisture come through.
Aside from moisture, Dooley says a musty smell in the basement or severe headaches and respiratory issues could also be a sign of mold. How do you outsmart the mold?
Well, one way is to protect surfaces. Anything that's vulnerable, such as a cardboard box, I have put in a plastic bag to protect it from mold, but even better, put items in these plastic bins, because mold doesn't like plastic, mold likes wood. So what do you do with the surfaces that are wood, such as these steps? You put in a sealant on them.
And if you follow those steps, she says the mold should leave your home alone. In Dauphin County, Portia Johnson, News 8.
And Julie tells us that most homeowner insurance policies do not cover mold removal, so catching it before it grows is key.
It got up to about, the watermark looks like it's about waist level. It's right here. Right below the light switch, about 40 inches inside here, where it was.
Spring Lake homeowner Daniel Goins showing us the damage left behind by floodwaters from Hurricane Florence. The water moved his furniture, washed items out of cabinets, and at the end of the video, Goins says his house just stinks. We wanted to know where you start cleaning up after a flood inside your home. Consumer investigator Steve Frazier is getting you those answers.
To deal with mold in an apartment like this, look what they had to do. They pulled the drywall up from the floor about 5 feet up the wall, exposing the studs. They also pulled out any carpeting and flooring, and now they're drying the unit out before they can begin restoration.
Coming, man. Yeah, it's coming.
It's a process being repeated over and over again in these Chapel Hill apartments. And the biggest worry for tenants? Mold.
The rugs are wet, everything needs to be pulled out, the mold's already starting to build up.
It does concern me for sure, the effects of the mold. And that's sort of the scary part, is you don't realize how it's affecting you.
This crew from 1-800-WATER DAMAGE has been working here since last week.
The flooding was about 4 feet high here, so there's nothing you could really save that gap, because you also have sewage potentially in there, so you don't save any of this stuff, you just take it out of here.
Drywall like this has to be thrown out. It's too saturated and mold impregnated to deal with, and then you've got all this stuff like this. It all has to be disposed of too, because it's also been contaminated. If you are going to attempt mold cleanup yourself, the state DHHS says you need to know this. Wear an N95 rated mask or respirator which fits tightly. Wear long pants, long shirt, gloves, boots, and goggles. Dispose of all porous items that have been wet for more than 48 hours. And use a commercial mold control solution. Avoid bleach, which isn't effective in all cases.
You had a little tiny area. You could put some bleach down, but anything that starts to get past, like, say, 4, 5 square feet, you need to get an antimicrobial in there and clean it down.
Because removing mold can be a very tricky business, I've put a lot of resource material in today's web story to help you out. Getting answers for you, I'm CBS 17 consumer investigator Steve Frazier.